Awesome, blossom. So again, I'm glad everyone is with me today for our training on tips on documentation. I say this so often in so many of my trainings, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. So one of a big job of yours as a leader is to document, document, document. Anytime someone calls me or you send me an email and you ask me a question, hey Tim, should I document if, and I'm going to stop you right there and say, yes, you should. Whatever the rest of the question is, I'm always going to say, yes, you should be documenting. You document everything that's going on in your program. So today I'm going to go over some good tips to help you with proper documentation, and then share with you some tools that I've put together that I've used in my organization to help with documentation. And again, it helps you legally, it helps you with your reputation, it helps you with your connections with your families, your connections with your employees, all of the above. Documentation is the key. Again, I say this so often in so many of my different trainings. The secret to success when it comes to leadership in an early education program is documentation and communication. Documentation, communication. You got this, all right? Everything else we can get through as long as you've got those two things down right there. All right, so again, very, very valuable that you document as often as possible. You as a director are going to go through so many pads of paper in your program, documenting. I also use a lot of other good resources to help you with documentation. For those of you that are ProCare users, ProCare is a software company for childcare management. I love the journals in ProCare. So you have both a family journal, a child journal, and even on the employee side, there's journals for your employees. So you can document different conversations, different actions that happen with families, with children, with employees right there in ProCare. And it's very, very helpful because it's right there at your fingertip. You can print out a log. I've actually won multiple unemployment claims from my ProCare logs. They love it right there. But even though we've got all this technology to help us with good documentation, I still like good old-fashioned pieces of paper. All right, and again, I'm going to share some other tips with you as we go along. So, first recommendation or tip when it comes to good and proper documentation is every document that you have in your program should have a complete date, all right? A complete date. So July 13th, 2020, and that's going to be JULY 13, 2020, all right? Spell it all out. Avoid doing, 7/13/20, especially right now with it being the year 2020. You want to make sure that you actually write out 2020. If you just abbreviate and put 20, then anyone can go back and falsify that document and add 17 behind it. And so instead of it being 2020, they can make it say 2017 or 2016 or whatever year they want to make it right now. So complete 2020 right there. And again, spelling out the actual word of the month is very important when it comes to dates. I also recommend that every single page of your documentation should have a complete date. So it's not just on the cover or the front page. You're going to date every single page of any documentation that you have out there. All right? Also, that's very important not only for just your notes and your narratives, but when we talk about accident reports and incident reports, those type of documentations that are required by childcare licensing, complete dates on all of those items as well. When it comes to the signature, and you're going to have all parties involved sign every piece of documentation, And it is recommended that you have not only the signature of the individuals involved, but you also print their name and title, all right? So signature, printed name, and title. In your handbook, your employee handbook and your parent handbook, you may want to define what is the definition of a signature. When you hand a parent an accident report or an incident report or an illness report and you ask them to sign it, they are not agreeing to anything, all right? They're not admitting to anything. That signature is simply acknowledging that they were given the information. And you may want to even put that on your accident reports, incident reports, illness reports. By signing this report, you are acknowledging that you were given the information. Make sure that you put it in your policy manuals as well, that if a parent refuses to sign a document such as an accident report or an incident report, then it's grounds for immediate dismissal from your program. It's not a choice. They can't refuse to sign it. They cannot refuse to acknowledge that you gave them the information. So if you have a parent say, well, I'm not signing that, well then gather your child's personal belongings. Today is your last day. Because otherwise, if they don't sign the document and then licensing comes out to investigate, you have no proof that you have notified that parent of that incident or that illness or that injury. So that signature is very, very important right there. Now with an employee, if an employee refuses to sign a document, then that's insubordination, all right? So yes. I see a couple of people commenting on the Facebook Live that the internet might be a little glitchy. Guys, welcome to 2020 and coronavirus, okay? The internet is very, very busy. I think I address this in every single webinar that I do. We just kind of have to do the best we can with the internet that we've got. It's very, very busy, okay? So there's nothing we can do about that. It's the world that we live in. We're going to practice the power of acceptance. It is what it is, and we're going to do the best we can. If you do miss anything during this Facebook Live, it is also being recorded on a different platform that will be posted on my website later today. So if anything is glitchy for you, you should be able to catch the complete recording, hopefully with no technical issues right there. All right. So going back to our documentation, complete date on every page of your documentation, signatures, printed name, title, and that signature is acknowledging that you were given the information. If someone refuses to sign a document, then they got to go away. They got to go, all right? So you don't get to do that right there. Let's talk about when you have a situation that a parent comes in and says, well, my child came home last night and said that your teacher grabbed him by the arm and drug him across the room, or whatever that situation may be. Anytime you have a situation like that where a parent comes in and accuses one of your employees of doing something harmful, first thing you want to do is make sure you pull that parent into a private area. Pull them into your office to discuss this. Sometimes they're going to want to talk about it right there at the front door or at the front desk. Some parents like to have an audience whenever they announce these concerns. You want to get them into a private area so that you can keep this confidential. When that parent says, hey, my child came home last night and said blah, blah, you're going to go into the office, pull out your pad of paper and a pen, and then you're going to say, tell me what happened. Tell me what your child came home and said. And you're going to let them give their story, and you're going to sit here and you're going to document. Write down word for word what the parent is telling you. Don't interrupt them, all right? Don't interrupt them. Just let them get it all out. Don't become defensive. Don't start trying to explain things in the middle of their story. Just listen, all right? The more you interrupt, the more you want to try to speak out, it's going to frustrate that parent even more. So sit there and document, document, document. After the parent is done explaining to you whatever their concern is, then you're going to say to them, let me read back my notes. This is what I wrote down. Okay? And basically read what you wrote down. All right? And then ask them, did I write down everything correctly? All right? Are my notes, what your concern is? All right? And then let them know that you're going to immediately look into the situation. Another tool that I have that is very, very good is I have a document called a parent concern form. Looks just like this. I did put this on my website, timthetrainer.com. So if you want to download it and take a look at it, you can. But anytime we have a parent that comes to us and says, hey, I've got a concern, hey, I'm upset about something, we go ahead and we fill out this parent concern form. Very, very simple form. Today's date, the child's name, the parent's name or the staff member's name that are involved in it, and, write down what your concerns are. This right here is going to show the parent that you were serious, that you're taking this serious, you're not blowing them off, and you're going to have them sign it, okay, that sign that they have this concern. This works really, really well. Okay, like I said, it shows the parent that you're taking them serious and that you're listening to their concern or their complaint. The other thing I love about this is that sometimes you have parents that are they just bring up petty stuff, all right? Some of you probably have parents that every single day it feels like they have a different concern. It's like they have a checklist in their car, right? Today's Monday, I'm going to complain about the menu. On Tuesday, I'm going to complain about the teacher's dress code. On Wednesday, I don't think my kid's going to be ready for kindergarten. On Thursday, it's too hot outside. It's like they have a checklist, right? When you start filling out your parent concern form, it's going to eliminate some of those petty concerns, all right? Because they know you're going to write it down and they know you're going to have them sign it. I also like to collect these, and there have been times where I've had to go to parents and say, hey, your happiness is very important to me. And it's important to me that you and your child are in a place that you feel safe, that you trust, and that your needs are being met. Let me make a list of all of the licensed childcare programs in the area, and maybe you should go find a place that's going to make you happy. And they're like, what, are you kicking me out? No. I'm not kicking you out. I want you to be happy. And let's take a look at all of these parent concern forms that I've got. And you got a whole stack of them. You were upset about the menu. You were upset about the staff dress code. You were upset about outside time. Maybe we should find some place that's going to make you happy. Yeah, they stop then. All right, they stop. All right, let's go back to whenever the parent comes in and says, well, hey, my kid came home last night and said that your teacher did blah, 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 blah. You're going to pull them into the office, pull them into a private area, grab your pad of paper and a pen, and you're going to document, write down whatever it is that they're saying. All right? Then you're going to tell that parent, hey, I'm going to give this my priority attention. All right? Whatever I had on my plate today is now pushed aside, and I'm going to focus on this concern. We're going to look into this situation, and I will follow up with you within 24 hours. That follow-up is critical, and always follow up within 24 hours. Another thing I love about the parent concern form that I've got, it helps you with the follow-up. All right, it reminds you to do that follow-up, so it's really, really good. When you've got a situation where a parent has said, hey, my kid came home yesterday and said that your teacher did blah, 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 blah. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull every adult that is involved in the situation into the office one at a time. So let's say that there's 2 teachers in that classroom. I'm going to pull both teachers in, all right? Even though they said, it was my kid came home and said that Mary Beth grabbed him by the arm. But I've got Mary Beth and I've got Mary Jane in the classroom. I'm going to pull both of them in, all right? I'm going to sit the adult down, I'm going to hand them a pad of paper and a pen, and I'm going to say, it was brought to my attention that there was a situation yesterday where an adult grabbed a child by the arm and pulled him across the classroom. I need you to document whatever you know about this situation. All right? Now, I did not say who the adult was. I did not say who the child was. I just want you to, it was brought to my attention that there was a situation yesterday where an adult grabbed a child by the arm. I need you to document whatever you know about this. All right? And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, I'm going to give you 15 minutes to sit in this office and think about it. And if you don't know anything, then that's what you're going to document, is that you don't know anything. All right? You'll do that with both of the adults involved in the situation. Now, if you have cameras in your classroom, and I really hope that y'all have cameras in your classroom, that is for your surveillance only. I am not a big fan of families having access to cameras. That's a whole nother webinar right there. But you're going to look into the situation. You're going to look at your cameras and see what you can find right there. After the adults document what they know about the situation that happened, then you're going to come back into the office, you're going to read over their documentation, and then you're going to ask them, tell me what you know. Okay, tell me what you know about this situation that came up yesterday. All right. Well, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm in here. This is so scary. I'm lost for words right now. I was standing over in the home center when Johnny, well, hang on just a second. You just said you were standing in the home center, but you wrote down that you were standing near the block center. So which one was it? Were you in the home center or were you in the block center? Oh, I'm so sorry. This is my head right now. This is crazy that this is going on. It was the home center. I was standing in the home center. Well, then I need you to correct your documentation and sign off on it. Always have the employee document first and then interview them second. All right? Document first, interview second. Okay? If you do it the opposite, where you interview first and then document second, then it could come back and be perceived that you're coaching them on what to document. And you don't want it to look like you're coaching them. So always document first, interview second. All right? Now, another document that I have that is very, very similar to the parent concern form is a staff communication form. Again, this is very, very similar. This is also located on my website, timthetrainer.com, under documents. Any conversation you have with an employee, you're going to document on your staff communication form. Now, I actually outlined this in our personnel policies, that a staff communication form is not a write-up. All right? A staff communication form is not a form of disciplinary action. This is just documenting that I had a conversation with you. So if you're walking by a classroom and you have to say, hey, Leslie, lower your voice. We can hear you all the way up in the office. Then after I tell Leslie, hey, you need to lower your voice a little bit, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to fill out a staff communication form and go back and have her sign off on it. All right, again, I'm not writing you up. I'm just documenting that we had this conversation. Because remember, like I said at the very beginning, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. So you document, document, document. A lot of you may be doing anecdotal records, and I definitely recommend that you do anecdotal records for your children. And that's where you're documenting developmental milestones in the classroom. So you've got your developmental milestone checklist, and whenever you see a child meet or exceed an expectation on your developmental milestone checklist, then you can document that. Now, I didn't bring any with me in here, but the way I used to do it is I would always keep a pad of sticky notes in my pocket, or I've done it with some teachers where they have their little aprons and they keep sticky notes in their aprons. When they see a child meet a milestone, they'll just put today's date, what did they observe, what was the milestone that was achieved, and then they just write it on a sticky note and put it in their pocket. And then each classroom has a binder that's got tabs for each child, and there's basically an anecdotal note journal for each child. Very, very simple. It could be simple blank pieces of paper. So maybe at nap time, whenever the teacher has a little bit of extra time, they're going to pull those sticky notes out, they're going to go to their anecdotal record binder, and they're going to document, the child's milestones for the day. That way, when it comes time to do parent-teacher conferences, when it comes time to do your assessments, you've got good record of your anecdotal records with the kids. The other thing we like to do is, because sometimes we do have teachers in the morning, teachers in the afternoon, teachers in the midday, there might be multiple adults working with one group of children. So we kind of like to take notes about different things that have happened during the day. Hey, FYI, Kevin has medication that needs to go home. Make sure you put sunblock on Susie, whatever it may be. And you're leaving little notes to each other. You're communicating amongst the staff members. Very, very important thing to remember right here. Everything you document is a legal document. So that staff communication log that you keep in the classroom that is just for the teachers is a legal document. So you're going to document facts and facts only. All right? No opinions. You never want to document an opinion. You're going to document facts and facts only. And I have seen court cases where those staff communication journals have been subpoenaed in court. And it has been very damaging to the program on what some of the things that people write down. All right, especially if some of the documentation violates a protected class and is perceived to be discriminatory. That can get you in a lot of trouble. So remember that everything is a legal document. Now, something else I've said in a lot of my trainings here lately is that, anytime you're making a decision in your program or you've got something going on in your program, always ask yourself, how would this be perceived by a jury? Okay? If I were pulled into a courtroom, and some of my documentation was presented to a jury or a judge, how would it be perceived? So you want to make sure that all of your documentation is clear, is precise. Once again, facts and facts only. It's clean. Blue or black ink only. Blue or black ink only. If you have documentation that is written in green or purple or orange, it's going to be thrown out in a courtroom. All right? Blue or black ink only. No pencil either, okay? Sometimes, we leave our clipboard out and the kids come and get their crayons and they start scribbling all over your sign in and out sheet, or they start scribbling all over the accident report. All right, now you got a really colorful legal document. I want you to think about how that would be perceived if I'm walking into a courtroom and I'm having to present a sign in and out sheet with scribbles all over it. What is going to be the perception of the jury? You don't run a very clean and professional organization right there, and you don't take good care of your documentation. It's not going to be perceived well. All right? Same thing, sometimes our teachers like to sit there at nap time and they'll start doodling on your sign in and out sheet or some of your documents and drawing little unicorns and rainbows and flowers and their boyfriend's name and, blah, 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 blah. And all of those doodles are now on your legal document and could end up in a courtroom. All right? So keep it clean. As a manager, you need to make it part of your everyday routine that when you're walking around your program and you're walking into classrooms, you're taking a good look at, lesson plans, at what we did today, at incident reports and accident reports, and you're checking for grammar and spelling and punctuation and capital letters, all right? You don't want your teachers writing an accident report as if they're texting their best friend. And it's all in lowercase, no punctuation, with emojis, all right? It needs to be proper English. That's very, very important right there. Let's talk about accident reports and incident reports for just a moment. Anytime you have a teacher complete an accident report or an incident report, illness report, any of those type of documents, never sign it until you read it and look into the situation. Don't blindly sign an accident report or an incident report without looking into it. So if a teacher brings you an accident report and says, hey, Susie got hurt on the playground, okay, you're going to take that accident report, check today's date, check the child's name, make sure it was the correct child, all right? All of the employees that were involved in the situation, not just the employee creating the document. If there's 2 teachers in the classroom, both teachers' names need to be listed on that document. You're going to read the description, what happened, what first aid was administered, all right? Cleaned off the area, applied ice, and gave hugs and kisses, all right? Hugs and kisses is not first aid, all right? I know that you're trying to make the parent feel like, we nurtured the child and we made the child feel good. But if it says what first aid was administered, hugs and kisses are not first aid. All right. Gave the child TLC. All right. Well, if you actually Google and look up TLC, it's an infectious disease. All right. It's an abbreviation for an infectious disease. I don't know which one. Okay. I'm not a medical doctor, but you need to actually tender loving care if that's what you're going to do. But I would stick to what is the actual first aid. Now, at the bottom of that document, if you want to write, we gave hugs and kisses and cuddled with the kid, kind of put that towards the bottom, but leave it. Don't put it where it says first aid. And before you sign that accident report, if it says Susie fell down on the playground and bumped her head, we applied ice and observed her, for swelling and other signs and symptoms. Before you go signing that accident report, you need to go walk down the hallway, go into that classroom and look at that child. Look at the bump on the head. All right? You got to examine before you sign. Very, very important. I've been involved in situations where directors have signed off on accident reports, and then later in the day, the parent came in and said, hey, I need to talk to you about my kid getting hurt on the playground. And the director's like, oh, did your kid get hurt today? You signed the accident report, all right? So don't sign anything until you look into it, all right? So there's my advice on that one. All right. When you are documenting performance, all right, so, and we're going to have a whole separate webinar on performance improvement plans and doing write-ups for employees and how to avoid unemployment claims. That's going to be a whole separate webinar coming up in the near future. But for the sake of documentation, when you are documenting performance, always document the exact policy number that the employee is violating or that the employee is not meeting the expectation. So every policy in your employee handbook, every policy in your staff employee handbook and parent handbook, they need to have policy numbers, not page numbers, all right? So use policy numbers. This is policy 25.2 or policy 12.3, whatever that might look like in your world. But when you're documenting performance, document the actual policy number. Even with parents, especially when you're doing a follow-up with a parent, document the policy number, okay, that you're referencing to. Same thing with minimum standards. And for pretty much every employee expectation that may not be being met, or every employee performance issue, you can tie to a minimum standard. So not only are you going to document what policy number is being violated, but you're going to document the actual minimum standard. This employee is not following minimum standard 746-1203A, all right, or whichever standard number it is. This is really, really critical when it comes to, like I said, unemployment claims, wrongful termination lawsuits, wrongful dismissal of a child, all right? When you can actually quote a policy number or you can quote a minimum standard, it's a slam dunk, all right? You got it, all right? So very important right there whenever you're having to refer back to policies, processes, or standards. Another document that I have put together that I really, really love when it comes to documentation, and once again, this is on my website, timthetrainer.com, under documents, is a professional development worksheet. So anytime you have an employee and they go to a training event or they do a training, make sure they fill out this professional development worksheet. What was, employee's name, today's date, what was the training topic, what did they learn during that training, how can they use that training in their classroom or in their school, how does it relate to the employee handbook, and how does it relate to the minimum standards, and then have them sign it, and then have the director sign it. This is beautiful in unemployment claims, all right? Because sometimes employees will come back and say, well, I was terminated for not doing my job, but no one ever told me how to supervise the kids. No one ever showed me how to properly supervise the kids, okay? No one ever explained the expectations. And then whenever you can go back and say, well, actually, on July 13th of 2020, you attended a training on proper supervision in the classroom, and here are your notes and your handwriting on what you learned and how you're going to apply it to the classroom, etc., etc. Again, slam dunk. You just won that unemployment claim. All right? Make sure that you're keeping documentation confidential. All right? Now, one of the biggest violations that I see when it comes to privacy law violations, documentation that is being exposed, is the medication log. All right, and so many times I see medication logs on a clipboard just like this, where, Betsy's mom comes in and signs in Betsy with amoxicillin and the dosage and the time and everything, and then, later on, Susie comes in and Susie's mom signs in her kid's medication, but you know that when Susie's mom is signing in her medication, she's also looking to see what Betsy's on, all right? And parents are nosy. They're going to read what all the other kids, what type of medication they're on. We got to get away from this, folks, all right? What I recommend is, again, getting a medication binder with tabs, and each child has their own tab. Now, you don't have to make a tab for every single child in the center. Just make a tab for each child that has medication right now. All right? Really quick and easy to do that. That way, when the parent goes to sign in, the medication, they're going to open up to their child's tab and they're going to sign in the medication. They're only seeing their child's information. They're not seeing the other children's information. All right, so a big helpful tip on keeping things confidential. But like I said, the medication is the one that I see the most right there. When you have an occurrence in your program, document as soon as possible. All right? As soon as possible, you want to create that documentation. The longer you wait to document, the more you're going to miss. Okay? You're going to miss some of the details. You're going to miss some of the facts. So document as soon as possible. Avoid derogatory comments. Avoid accusing other individuals or other situations. And you're only going to document what you see, what you hear, not what other people told you. You want to avoid third-party comments as much as possible. Many, many times in a courtroom, third-party material will be thrown out. If you didn't see it, if you didn't hear it, all right, then it's typically not acceptable. So that's what you're going to document right there. Don't document any promises. Don't document any agreements, all right? Stick to the facts, stick to the plan, but you got to be very careful when making promises on documentation, especially with your parent follow-up. Because if you document, I promise you, your child will never be bit again. All right? And you actually put that in your documentation and everyone signs off on it. Now the next time that child gets bit, you got a big problem because you promised them your child would never be bit again. So you want to avoid those type of things, promises or guarantees or commitments right there. All right? Very good. So that's basically it on tips for documentation. I hope all of this information was extremely helpful. Document. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. All right? Anytime you're asking yourself, should I document this? The answer is yes, you should document this. All right? So there you go. All right, so I will have an online worksheet up on Facebook here in just a little bit for those of you that are needing a certificate of completion for today's training. I'll have that up there for you. Just give me just a little bit. As always, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to email me. Feel free to give us a call. We are here for you. Like I said, have a happy Monday, and I will see all of you on Wednesday of this week for our next webinar on enhancing physical activities in the classroom. Also, remember that we have a Director Credentials course coming up next week. You can either do the course live in person or you can do it virtually. Information is available on our website, timthetrainer.com. But we've got a nice full class coming up next week. And hopefully some of you can join in on that. All right. Have a wonderful Monday. Make safe choices and stay healthy, everybody. Bye.